Hello everyone, this is the solutions to the practice related to trigonometric functions. So the first part is the true false questions. So let's consider the first question. So if theta is in the second quadrant, then the square root of 1 minus sine square of theta is equal to negative cosine of theta. Is it true or false? So we start out with this particular identity, that is cosine square of theta plus sine square of theta equal to 1. And you can solve for cosine square of theta by move sine square of theta to the right hand side. So this is what you got, cosine square of theta equal to 1 minus sine square of theta. Now you're going to take square root on both sides of the equations, and you get plus and minus square root of 1 minus sine square of theta. Now you have two values to consider, positive value and negative value, but you go back to the question, you see that theta is in the second quadrant, so you're going to choose the answer that cosine of theta is equal to negative square root of 1 minus sine square of theta. So for this particular equation, this is a true statement. Now for the second question, you have tangent of pi over 3 equal to square root of 3. This is true as well. So in the exam, I could recommend that you try to write down the information related to the preference angle for sine, cosine, tangent, and cotangent. And again, the preference angle, you can refer them back to 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 2. All right, so help you tremendously in doing this type of problems. Now the next questions, the function y equal to sine of theta can be greater than 1. So this one is false because the amplitude of the function is equal to 1. So the amplitude is the constant in front of sine function. In this case, the constant is 1. So the greatest value that function can get to is 1. Therefore, this function y equal to sine of theta cannot be greater than 1. So this is the false statement. Right. Number 4, the period of tangent of theta is equal to pi. So we learned that tangent function is periodic function with period pi. Or another way to add this type of question is it is true. So you have tangent of theta plus pi equal to tangent of theta, and this is true. Right? So tangent of theta and cotangent of theta are periodic functions with period pi. So this one is true. Now the next question, sine of x plus 2 pi equal to sine of x for all x, and this is true as well, as sine and cosine functions are periodic functions with period 2 pi. Now number 6, the graph of y equal to cotangent of x has infinitely many vertical asymptotes, and this is true because cotangent of x is equal to cosine of x over sine of x, and you don't want sine of x to be 0 because sine of x is in the denominator. So the domain of cotangent function is all real number except at any value of x such that sine of x equal to 0. And we talk about this in class, and those values are any multiple of pi. It can be negative 3 pi, negative 2 pi, negative 1 pi, 0 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, so on and so forth. So that's why you have infinitely many vertical asymptotes. And the graph of y equal to cosine of x is symmetrical with respect to the y-axis. This is true as well because cosine function is an even function. And sine function is an odd function. Right? So for an even function, the graph of an even function is symmetrical with respect to y-axis. Now moving on to the short answers, you have pi over 24 radians. Is that correspond to what degree measure? So you use the formula of 180 degree divided by pi. You cancel out a pi, and you're left with 180 degree divided by 24, and you get 15 over 2 degree, or 7.5 degree. Now for 240 degree, again, you want to convert this into a gradient measure. What you do is you take 240 degree, multiply with pi over 180 degree, and you get, and you're going to get 4 pi over 3. Just basically simplify 240 and 180. Eventually, you're going to get 4 pi over 3 radians for the answer. Now we're going to move on to multiple choice questions. For the first questions, we want to choose the correct reciprocal identity. So problem A, so the choice A, psi of x equal to 1 over tangent of x is not the case. And psi of x is not going to be the reciprocal of cosine of x. However, for C right here, psi of x equal to 1 over cosecant of x. And we know that by ratio, cosecant of x is equal to 1 over sine of x. Therefore, that is true that psi of x is equal to 1 over cosecant of x. So C is the choice. On the other hand, you may see the questions like related to secant of x, and secant of x is 1 over cosine of x. So that's why D is not correct. Now, number 2, which of the following represent radian measure of 45-degree angle? And that could be pi over 4. So that one is straightforward calculations. Just again, basically, to convert from degree measure to radian measure, you multiply by pi over 180 degree. And you simplify this, you get pi over 4 for the answer. All right, so number 3, the interval of considerations between 0 and 2 pi, we want to know how many value of x satisfy the equation of cosine square of x equal to 1/2, and the answer for this is equal to 4. There could be 4 solutions, or there could be 4 value of x that satisfy the equation cosine square of x equal to 1/2. Now, to do this problem, the first thing you do is to take the square root on both sides of the equation. You get cosine of x equal to plus minus root 2 over 2. And the reference angle here has something related to the value of square root of 2 over 2. And the reference angle should be alpha equal to pi over 4. Right. And for the reference, after the reference angle, you need to calculate the value of the angle x in quadrant 1, in quadrant 2, in quadrant 3, and in quadrant 4. Right? Because even though you have 2 different equations here, the reference angle are the same. And so we just need to do the calculations for quadrant 1. That is x equal to the reference angle equal to pi over 4. In quadrant 1, you have x equal to pi minus alpha, which is pi minus pi over 4, or 3 pi over 4. And in quadrant 3, you have x equal to pi plus alpha, or pi plus pi over 4, or this is 5 pi over 4. And in quadrant 4, you have x equal to 2 pi minus alpha, or 2 pi minus pi over 4, give me 7 pi over 4. Now, for the first equation, cosine of x equal to square root of 2 over 2. Because cosine is a positive number, the quadrant that we need to take into account is quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. Right, so the solution for the equation of cosine of x equal to positive square root of 2 over 2 give me the value in quadrant 1 and in quadrant 4. Now, for cosine of x equal to negative square root of 2 over 2, so that is a negative number. Therefore, the value of the solutions, or the value of x, should be in quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. So this are the 2. So therefore, when you do this type of problem, you have to be careful to identify the reference angle, calculate the angle x or theta in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, and make sure that cosine of x or sine of x or tangent of x is a positive number or a negative number, so that you can consider the quadrants of the solution that you're looking for. So in this case, you have 2 equations here for cosine that lead to 4 solutions. Therefore, the answer is D. Now, number 4, what is the value of psi of 11 pi over 3? So as I mentioned earlier, it's good to check for the reference angle. So in this case, the reference angle is alpha equal to pi over 3. Now, how could you get to 11 pi over 3? So you consider the unit circle and draw here. So pi over 3 is 60-degree angle, so you get the angle somewhere here. All right, so this is pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, 6 pi over 3, 7 pi over 3, 8 pi over 3, 9 pi over 3, 10 pi over 3, and this is where you get the answer for 11 pi over 3. So for 11 pi over 3, and you want to calculate psi of 11 pi over 3. Again, the reference angle in this case is alpha equal to pi over 3, or psi of pi over 3 is equal to square root of 3 over 2. But the angle is in the fourth quadrant now. Therefore, the answer that you're looking for is negative square root of 3 over 2. All right, so how did I do that? Again, you identified the reference angle. In this case, pi over 3. Now, how would you get to 11 pi over 3? So you take like 1 pi over 3 at a time, right? So again, here you start out with 1 pi over 3, then 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, 6 pi over 3, 7 pi over 3, 8 pi over 3, 9 pi over 3, 10 pi over 3, and this is 11 pi over 3. So that will tell you exactly where the angle is located. It's located in the fourth quadrant, right? And use the reference angle to calculate psi of pi over 3, give you the square root of 3 over 2. And again, the angle 11 pi over 3 is in the fourth quadrant. Therefore, psi of 11 pi over 3 should be a negative number, negative square root of 3 over 2. Now you're going to do the same thing for cosine of negative 7 pi over 3. The reference angle here is alpha equal to pi over 3. Therefore, cosine of pi over 3 should be equal to 1/2. All right, so you start 1 pi over 3 at a time. So 1 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3. Now you're going to start with 1 pi over 3 at a time. But since we have a negative 7 pi over 3, what you do is you rotate clockwise. Right? So we're going to start out with negative 1 pi over 3, negative 2 pi over 3, negative 3 pi over 3, negative 4 pi over 3, negative 5 pi over 3, negative 6 pi over 3, and negative 7 pi over 3 right here. So this angle is in the fourth quadrant, and cosine of that fourth quadrant is cosine in the fourth quadrant is a positive number. Therefore, the answer should be 1/2. Now, for tangent of 1000 pi, how could you get there? So again, let's consider the fractions. Sine of 1000 pi over cosine of 1000 pi. Right. So sine of any multiple of pi should give you 0. Right. So this is 0, and the denominator is cosine of 1000 pi. So this should give me 0 for the answer. Again, any multiple, sine of any multiple of pi should give you 0. Because let's start with the unit circle here. So psi of 0 is 0, psi of pi is 0, psi of 2 pi is 0, psi of 3 pi is 0, so on and so forth. Again, psi of any multiple of pi should always give you 0. Now, what is the value of cotangent of 9 pi over 2? So this is cosine of 9 pi over 2 divided by sine of 9 pi over 2. Now, in contrast with sine of any multiple of pi give you 0, you have cosine of any odd number of pi over 2 should always give you 0. So here you get 0 over sine of 9 pi over 2, or this is 0 as well. Now, what is the value of cosine of 10 pi over 3? So 10 pi over 3, start with the unit circle again. So this is pi over 3. So the reference angle is alpha equal to pi over 3. Then you calculate cosine of pi over 3, give me positive 1/2. So how would you get to 10 pi over 3 from the reference angle pi over 3? So here, 1 pi over 3. This is 2 pi over 3. This is 3 pi over 3. This is 4 pi over 3. This is 5 pi over 3. This is 6 pi over 3. Then 7 pi over 3, 8 pi over 3, 9 pi over 3 and 10 pi over 3. So the angle 10 pi over 3 is in the third quadrant, and therefore the answer should be -1/2. So we're done with the multiple choice. We're done with the multiple choice questions. Let's move on to some written responses. So if the value of psi of x is given at 3/4 and cosine is the negative number, so what is tangent of x going to be? So for this type of problem, you're going to see a couple of them later on in this note, that you always start with the Pythagorean theorem, that is cosine square of x plus sine square of x equal to 1. You know the value of 3/4, substitute that into the equations. Right. And eventually we're going to find the value of cosine of x. Okay, here 3/4 altogether square give you 9/16 equal to 1. Then you can solve for cosine square of x. This is equal to 1 minus 9/16. Well, this is equal to, so cosine square of x equal to 7/16. When you take the square root on both sides of the equation, you should get plus minus value of square root of 7 divided by 4. Now, what value should I choose? Is that positive or negative number? Now, you go back to the questions, and they give you the information that cosine is a negative number. Therefore, the value that you need is -√7/4. Then you already have sine of x equal to 3/4, cosine of x equal to -√7/4. Then you can calculate tangent of x, which is the ratio or the fractions of sine of x over cosine of x. For sine of x is equal to 3/4, and cosine of x is -√7/4. You divide your fractions, that means you can multiply by the reciprocal. You get 3/4 times 4 over negative square root of 7, and the 4 cancel out. You're left with 3 over negative root of 7. Then the answer, for the answer, you need to radicalize this by multiplying divided by square root of 7. Get 3, right, with the negative in front. All right, so tangent of x is equal to 3 times √7/7. Now, moving on to the next equations. This is slightly different from what you see in the note in class. All right. So you still try to find the value of theta by solving the equation of 2 times sine of 2 theta minus 1 equal to 0. So what do we do here? So you start with 2 times sine of 2 theta minus 1 equal to 0. Somehow you have to solve for sine of 2 theta by itself. So you move -1 to the right hand side, and you get 2 times sine of 2 theta equal to 1, or sine of 2 theta equal to 1/2. Now, again, it's good to know the reference table, right? Including the reference angle of 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 2, pi over 3, and pi over 2. And you know the value of sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent functions. So in this case, when you have sine of 2 theta equal to 1/2, the reference angle should give you pi over 6. So the reference angle is alpha equal to pi over 6. Then you calculate the value of theta in this case 2 theta, right? So the angle that you're looking for now is not only 1 theta but 2 theta. So you calculate the 2 theta in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So in quadrant 1, 2 theta is equal to the reference angle. In this case is pi over 6. How could you get theta? You divide both sides for 2, you get pi over 12. In quadrant 2, you have 2 theta equal to pi minus alpha, or pi minus pi over 6. This gives me 5 pi over 6. And to get theta, you divide both sides for 2. Therefore, theta is 5 pi over 12. Now, in quadrant 3, you have 2 theta equal to pi plus alpha, or pi plus pi over 6. This gives me 7 pi over 6. Or theta could be 7 pi over 12. Again, to get theta, I divided both sides for 2. In quadrant 4, I have 2 theta equal to 2 pi minus alpha equal to 2 pi minus pi over 6, or this is 11 pi over 6. And to get theta by itself, you divide both sides for 2 to get 11 pi over 12. Now you get multiple value of theta. You want to make sure that the value that you're looking for satisfy the equations that psi of 2 theta equal to 1/2. Right? So psi of 2 theta equal to 1/2 is a positive number. So when you look at the unit circle, the sign for sine and cosine is going to be, so the first entry should be for cosine. This is positive, this is positive. In the second quadrant, this is negative, this is positive. In the third quadrant, negative, negative. And in the fourth quadrant, this is positive, negative. And the equations we have here is psi of 2 theta equal to 1/2. That is psi of 2 theta is a positive number. Therefore, the choice should be in quadrant 1 in quadrant 2. So the solutions are, so the solutions is in quadrant 1 in quadrant 2, and we're going to eliminate the answer in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. So the solutions are theta equal to pi over 12 and theta equal to 5 pi over 12. Now in the next questions, you consider point x comma y is a point on the unit circle in quadrant 4. Right, so in quadrant 4, x should be positive and y should be negative. Right, or cosine is positive and sine of theta should be negative. Right, so that's going to be very helpful for us later. Right. Another way to see this problem is that the point x comma y is equivalent to thinking about the point cosine of theta, sine of theta. In this case, you already see that cosine of theta is equal to root 3 over 2. We need to find the value of sine of theta. So you start out with the Pythagorean theorem of cosine square of theta plus sine square of theta equal to 1. For cosine of theta is root 3 over 2 square plus sine square of theta equal to 1. Or this is 3 over 4 plus sine square of theta equal to 1. Or sine square of theta equal to 1 minus 3 over 4 give me 1 over 4. Then you take the square root on both sides of the equation. You get sine of theta equal to plus or minus 1/2. Now, what should be the choice of sine of theta? In this case, again, we go back to the given problem that the point is in quadrant 4, indicate that sine should be a negative number. So since the point is in quadrant 4, therefore sine of theta is equal to negative 1/2. Now we see a similar problem in the next exercise where sine of theta equal to negative 2 over 7. Right, and theta is in quadrant 3, and you want to find cosine of theta. So theta is in quadrant 3, indicate that cosine is negative and sine is also negative. So sine is equal to negative 2 over 7. Let's find cosine of theta. So start out with this equation again. For sine of theta equal to negative 2 over 7. So cosine square of theta equal to plus 4 over 49 equal to 1. I'm going to solve for cosine square of theta. By moving 4 over 49 to the right hand side, you get 1 minus 4 over 49. And cosine square of theta is going to be 45 over 49. Take the square root on both sides of the equation. You should get plus minus square root of 45 over 49. Or you can write plus or minus root 45 over 7, because root 49 should give you 7. Now for square root of 45, you can simplify a little bit further, and square root of 45 is 9 times 5. So take out the 9, you have 3 times root 5 divided by 7. And since the angle is in quadrant 3, cosine should be a negative number. So sin theta is in quadrant 3, cosine of theta equal to -3 times square root 5 over 7. And that's it for the practice.